Sharks are arguably the most iconic ocean animal, thanks to movies like Jaws. However, extinct sharks can be pretty iconic too, and there's no better example than the Helicoprion, with this absolutely terrifying shark having a literal buzzsaw in its mouth called a tooth well. Now, it was not the only shark with these buzzsaw mouths, with its close relatives, like the Parahelicoprion, also having these tooth wells. Now, the Helicoprion probably consisted of a diet of squid and fish, but larger animals were probably on the menu too. It was discovered in 1884, and ever since then, there have been many changes made to it. And of course, it ended up with the Helicoprion we all have today. Now, the Helicoprion is part of the family called the Helicoprionidae, which also contains its closest relative, like the Parahelicoprion and the Toxoprion, which also both had buzzsaws in their mouths. Now, the Parahelicoprion was probably the top predator of the Permian, with the Helicoprion most likely filling in the top predator role in other places where the Parahelicoprion was absent. Now, the Helicoprion has had many changes throughout the years. Scientists have suggested all sorts of crazy tooth well arrangements. Some of these tooth well arrangements suggest that the Helicoprion had a tooth well on its fins, which was pretty strange, which didn't really make sense, because why would it have teeth on its fins? In fact, at one point, scientists even suggested it wasn't a shark at all, but actually a ray, which actually makes sense because sharks and rays are pretty closely related. Now, in terms of its actual teeth, the reason why most Helicoprion fossils are found in these tooth wells instead of just individual teeth is because the Helicoprion's teeth are deeply embedded into the root, which means it's pretty hard for them to fall out, which is why scientists find the tooth wells more than individual teeth. The Helicoprion was also absolutely massive, growing to over 6 meters in length, already making it bigger than most sharks alive today. Now, there have been some other absolutely crazy suggestions for this tooth well. One was that it had its tooth well on its upper jaw, the other on its lower jaw. Some say its lower jaw jutted out and its tooth well was there, but now, hopefully, we have the correct placement for this tooth well being embedded into its lower jaw. Now, in terms of the Helicoprion's size, it's also pretty vulnerable to the downsize, which has happened to many other famous prehistoric animals, such as the Liopleurodon and Dunkleosteus, which is where their sizes have decreased based on new fossil evidence. But this hasn't happened to the Helicoprion yet, and hopefully it never will happen. Now, in terms of its overall biology, we have never found a full skeleton of it, but its body hasn't really changed that much, because scientists mostly agree that its body was mostly just typical shark stuff. So yeah, the Helicoprion was pure nightmare fuel, and went extinct in the Permian in the early Triassic period. Following the Great Permian extinction,